Torah, HaTorah, Torah. HaTorah, HaTorah, Torah. HaTorah, HaTorah, Torah. HaTorah, HaTorah, Torah. Yeshua's the way, the truth, and the life.
She was a prostitute. She demoralized herself and she changed her garments again. Joseph's coat indicated his elevated status in the family. And what happened, his brother's attitude changed because it was about money and the money he might receive, the inheritance that he might receive. So greed drove his brothers to toss him into a pit. And we see the same thing today. Greed and money and the love of money motivates so many things and atrocities that happen in our society today. You can even go back to it. It motivates how things are used wrong with the news story we did. It's all about the greed. It's all about money. And that's what we see in this Torah portion today. So when you hear that Tamar, why is what Tamar did considered righteous? It's not about the name of her former husband. It's not about the name of her dead husband. It was about restoring honor to her and doing things the way Yah has called them to be done. So anyway, what do you have anything to say, Mark?
Oh, well, you went a different direction than when you started. And so I was I was following your original thing about marrying, within the family and that type of thing. And then you took off in a different direction, and I'm still thinking about the other one. So I was trying to think of, how to apply that to what I've been given as the Brit Hadashah, which is Matthew 1:18 through 25, which is the birth of the Messiah. And, thinking about how, it reads that when his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, yet Joseph, recognized what had actually happened with Mary and believed it, and it followed through, which, he had the choice, even though the Lord told him what to do and to go and be with Mary, but not have relations with her until, after the birth, I understand that most people wouldn't actually do that. They would take great offense at whatever it is. But I guess the fact that he heard from the Lord means that he did have a relationship with the Lord. And so following through with that. Now, of course, this is without the birth of the Messiah, which had nothing to do with whether or not Joseph married her or not or anything. It's just the Lord's plan without the birth of the Messiah, we don't have our belief system that we have. We'd still all be Jews, and believing the way of Torah and living out Torah and that type of thing without the Messiah, looking for a Messiah, I guess I should say. But my original thought was when you started talking about, the marrying of the brother and the name and all of that, my thought immediately goes to Romans 7, which starts off with Paul, talking about a woman whose husband has died. And so let me just go to Romans 7. Let's just start at verse 2. It says, for example, a married woman is bound by Torah to her husband while he is alive, but if the husband dies, she is released from the part of the Torah that deals with husbands. Therefore, while the husband is alive, she'll be called an adulteress if she marries another man. But if the husband dies, she is free from that part of the Torah. Now, we know this goes all in a different direction, and that's really talking about recognizing Torah and what parts of Torah work for different ways. And I think it really does apply to what you're talking about, in that you have to recognize Torah and the law behind Torah to even recognize what you're talking about in Tamar being righteous or not. You would have to recognize the laws of Torah along with whether or not she marries her brother or what direction you go from that. However, but I don't know how to look at it any differently based on, what you were talking about. So, and so that's where I would have gone with the Brit Hadashah, and that without even if Joseph hadn't acted on what the Lord told him to do, she still would have had the Messiah, and it still would have worked. But the Lord needed a righteous family. The Lord needed the husband and the wife together to maintain everything that happened after that. But isn't it interesting that we don't see Joseph again? I mean, after the original story of the birth and taking him to Egypt and then bringing him back, we just don't even see Joseph in the story again, though it does, jump from that part of the story to 30 years later when the Messiah started his ministry. But anyway, can go all kinds of directions.
A couple things. Let me get two questions out so I can be sure I don't forget them. One, would Mary have been chosen if Joseph wasn't a righteous man and do what he did? And secondly, we don't hear about him, but we do know the fingerprints of him because Yeshua became a carpenter. Now we know carpenter is also, I'm not saying he wasn't a physical carpenter, but being a carpenter is also an idiom for a teacher of the Torah. But we know that he went into his father's profession, and therefore Joseph wasn't out of the picture immediately. We do know that Joseph did play a big part in Yeshua's life. So I find that very interesting when you think of it in that terms, because it's not like he just disappeared and he's gone. He was there and he impacted Yeshua. And then for the other part of it, if Joseph wouldn't have been a righteous man, would Yah have chosen Mary? Because
that's exactly my same question that I had while you were saying that. Go ahead. I think the same thing.
It takes a family. It's all about a family. Always. It's always been about a family. I don't think so, because Mary and Joseph would be one. It's the 1-2-1 concept. Therefore, the one Mary was connected with had to be righteous himself and had to go along and had to understand the gravity of what was happening to Mary. Because even with Mr. and Mrs. Adam, or husband and wife, when you talk to, or let's go to Abraham and Sarah. I did a Torah portion on that. Maybe not here. Maybe it was at Life of Worship. But when they were speaking, they weren't just speaking to Abraham, when they were speaking to Sarah as well. And so in the choosing of Mary, was it also the choosing of Joseph?
Yeah, I agree with that question 100%. In that, and also they couldn't be married ahead of time, then it wouldn't be the virgin birth.
But in Hebrew, being betrothed is, I mean, you have to get a divorce once you're engaged.
I know.
So it's like you're married.
You're talking about the word Alma. Yeah, which is betrothed. Yeah, I get it. It all has to work together exactly the way it needs to work together. But so I don't want to even think about predestination, meaning that the Lord caused this to happen. He would have had to have found or known that through their choices, they got to this point. I don't know where to go with that. I don't know.
Well, I think it's a question everybody should just contemplate, study it out, research it yourself. As with everything, don't believe a word we say. Do your own study.
Please don't believe. Yeah, I agree.
Well,
We
you
are
guys,
richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
No one can come to you except through His love. Yeshua is the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to you except through His love. Torah, 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 Torah.